Feast, a look at the damage as more rough weather is on the way. Stories of survival. We hear from an Alabama woman who held onto a tree while a twister destroyed her home. And the NCAA's March Madness tournament makes its grand return.
The four states most watched news starts now.
Americans in several states are cleaning up this morning after tornadoes and thunderstorms hit tens of millions across the southeast. In Alabama, a twister touched down there, knocking out trees in its path. This is video from that. This is KOAM News at noon. I'm Tanya Bach. Well, the four states experienced some wicked weather both Wednesday and this morning. Further south, storms destroyed buildings and some entire farms from Texas to Georgia. Weather watches and warnings became tornadoes and violent storms. Let's go to Michael Hayslip, who's been tracking these storms and has the latest four-state forecast.
You know, we kind of lucked out, Tanya, because we actually did see tornado watches late in the last night. We had a report of one that touched down in Stone County, and while we had some damage to some homes, luckily no injuries reported here in the four states. And then we wake up on a Thursday morning to snow. Only mid-March, right? Luckily, we've been able to push all our precipitation out to the east and just did turn into rain. Still seeing a little bit of it want to stay as snow there as it approaches the Mississippi River on into Illinois, but we at least have some quiet weather behind it. Let's also remember, though, on top of our nighttime rain that took us and transitioned into the snow, that's why we've got our flood warnings along the rivers. County-wide flood warnings were allowed to expire, so at least a little step in the right direction. But no sunshine for today as we're locked in with the heavy cloud cover for the duration of the afternoon and evening. 40 is what it is right now in Joplin, 43 in Independence. Let's roll 41 in Fort Scott and 40 in Nevada. But with that south wind whipping in, we're down with wind chills still hanging in the 20s. How about a pair of 29s in Lamar and Carthage? Woo-hoo! Out in Mount Vernon only feels like 25 degrees right now. And without a whole bunch of sunshine to warm us up, that's the school calling, by the way. Without a whole lot of sunshine to warm us up, we're going to be stuck in the 40s. So it's going to feel just like low 30s for the duration of our Thursday. But here, as we get into the evening and nighttime hours, we begin to clear out just a little bit, and that's going to bring us plenty of sunshine on not only Friday, but also Sunday. A taste of spring coming as we have the equinox over the weekend. But guess what's next? Additional thunderstorm activity for next week. Now, before we get there, and we'll break that down in just a little bit, Tanya was talking about the massive tornado outbreak that they had for the southeast states that rolled from Mississippi through Alabama. Tanya, I know you've got the latest on that.
That's right. Dozens of storms wreaked havoc in the mid and deep south yesterday, especially in Mississippi and Alabama. And some areas are still under threat as scattered tornadoes move east into Georgia and the Carolinas. David Begnow spoke with one woman who survived the storm while clinging onto a tree. He reports from Tuscaloosa, Alabama.
This is where I sit every day.
Jennifer Patterson told our Birmingham affiliate CBS 42 that when she saw a storm coming toward her home, she ran into a ravine in the woods.
I was down in there holding on, and that little tree right there yonder is probably the one I was holding on to.
She stayed on her phone with her son as the trees collapsed around her.
He was hearing his mama scream. He was hearing the sounds go. And, I was just, all I could do was just say, Jesus, watch over me. Jesus, watch over me. And then it just kept going and going and going. And finally I just said, Jesus, take it away. And it's just like you could hear it easing up.
She says she was worried she wasn't going to survive. And now she is picking up what's left of her property. There are others in similar situations, from homes in Alabama to farms in Mississippi.
I just hear it. I hear the tornado. It's just coming, and oh my God, it was horrible. And my baby, she just crying and crying and crying.
Sabrina Hargrove says she and her child sheltered in a bathtub with her boyfriend and put a mattress on top of them as what they believed was a tornado hit their home, blowing out the windows to the home and their vehicles.
Blue, the dog, was outside when the tornado hit the home.
So I get up, look out the back window, and he's out there just standing like nothing even happened.
At the nearby University of Alabama in Tuscaloosa, hundreds of students packed into campus buildings after they were forced to shelter in place. Across the region, you had schools, vaccination clinics, businesses, all shut down after people were warned it's going to be a dangerous day.
We'll end on the good news. No injuries and no deaths.
across the South. David Begno, CBS News, Tuscaloosa, Alabama.
That is good news. Well, yesterday's first round of storms left some damage in parts of the 4 states, too. This in Carl Junction on County Road 290. The homeowner says around 5:30 Wednesday morning, she heard the storms roll in with heavy winds. When she was able to get out and inspect her property, she found that the roof of her barn and part of the roof of her garage had been blown off. Near Miami, Oklahoma, lightning caused damage to a home off of Highway 137. The strike caused scorching under the roof and a blown transformer. Both PSU and Block 22 are offering vaccine clinics today, and there's still time to join in if you hurry. The Block 22 clinic is available for business owners, employees in Pittsburgh on a first-come, first-served basis if you are over the age of 18, but it ends at 1 p.m. today. Now, Pitt State students can take advantage of a clinic at the Student Union. It goes until 4 or until shots run out. That's a look at today's top stories and weather in our first 7 minutes. Up next on KOAM News at noon, the first games of the NCAA's March Madness tournament get underway today. We're going to look at the challenges the teams face as they prepare to battle it out in one city this year. And later, we're making a spring vegetable couscous in the Mr. Food Test Kitchen. The NCAA basketball tournament starts today. It's being held entirely in the Indianapolis area instead of across the country like usual, and safety remains a huge concern. At least 6 tournament referees have already been sent home over a positive COVID test. Dana Jacobson is covering the event for CBS Sports in Indianapolis.
As the tip-off to March Madness inches closer, teams are heading to America's heartland for one of the most ambitious national tournaments in collegiate history.
For the National College Championship basketball finale.
Before last year's cancellation, the NCAA had crowned a basketball champion every year since 1939.
While there was hope and confidence that this could happen, there was also lingering doubt.
Dan Gavitt, Senior Vice President of Basketball for the NCAA, is in charge of tournament operations.
It is a challenge to have 68 teams staying in 4 hotels. Teams were required to have 7 daily negative tests before they arrived in Indianapolis, and then daily testing upon their arrival. We're requiring mask wearing and physical distancing and sanitation.
During a normal year, players, coaches, and fans would spread out at regional sites around the country. This year, each of the 68 teams will play in and around Indianapolis. Players and coaches will be isolated. Each team will occupy its own floor of a hotel. Everyone will wear contact tracing devices. But interacting with family members is off limits. And fans will be allowed to watch games in person, but arenas will be limited to just 25% capacity.
I mean, we're at the JW Marriott, so there's been worse bubbles, you know.
Michigan State Hall of Fame coach Tom Izzo hasn't missed a tournament in 23 years and understands the stress of the isolation.
You really don't leave your floor. You can't really go outside for a walk or things like that. So right now, it's just different, but it's not necessarily a bad different.
It's a unique year. You know, my parents get to come still, and even with everything going on, and it's just really exciting for me. You know, it's my mom and my dad talk about it a lot, you know, and it means a lot to my family.
Beyond the players, I've talked to a lot of coaches and parents this week, and all have pointed to the sacrifice that these players have had to make just to get to this point, specifically so much isolation and the mental toll from it. One father even got choked up telling me he'd never gone this long without hugging his son. This is my 6th year doing sidelines for the tournament. I've covered it in some way for more than 20 years. Trust me when I tell you, the appreciation and the emotions, they are heightened this year. Dana Jacobson, CBS News, Indianapolis.
Still be a fun show to watch. Still to come on the KOAM News at noon, Mr. Food.
With spring right around the corner, we've got a dish that'll have you ready to welcome it with open arms. Just wait till you see how easy it is to make.
But first, Michael Hayslip returns with your complete forecast.
Hard to believe at one time this morning, pre-sunrise, that outside Television City, we were actually covered in snow. Walked outside my house this morning, had about 2 inches out there on the car. and thought, only mid-March in the 4 states. And now that we've been able to kind of get rid of everything, thank goodness our ground was so warm. No travel concerns, and we're pretty much done with our snow. Now we just got to warm up a little bit because we still have a wind chill that's all the way down to 31 degrees. Big factor is this north-northwest wind coming in at 16%, but we'll find our silver lining, and that's the fact that the barometer is finally on the rise. But we're not going to be seeing any sunshine today. Cloud cover all the way from central Kansas encompassing the 4 states. But at least all the rain and a little bit of the snow has pushed its way off to the east of our highlighted counties. Now, speaking of the snow, had several storm reports come in this morning. How about 2 inches in Barton County and an additional 2 inches up in Nevada in Vernon County? And while we're talking about storm reports, be remiss if we didn't talk about what happened last night into early this morning, where the thunderstorm activity did drop a tornado in Stone County in the town of Elsie. National Weather Service hasn't given us a magnitude of it as of yet, but we did have some structural damage as trees were down on houses. Luckily, no reports of any injuries. Speaking of warnings, watches, and the etc., we have flood warnings for our rivers. The 2 additional ones I really want to point out: the Spring River right there in Carthage, and then we've seen massive expansion of the Neosho River all the way now north of Chanute. And if we drop down into northeast Oklahoma, we're not looking at an expiration time until Monday morning. So it's going to be a while before that water begins to recede. Now, we talked about the tornado that was spotted in Stone County, of course, overnight for the Deep South. A line of tornadoes that stretched from Mississippi up through Alabama. This is a 24-hour loop. This is what happened last night. It's not what's going on right now. And of course, there's the snow that we had for this morning. And as we reset, we're actually going to see the thunderstorm activity for today move toward the mid-Atlantic. 40 in Joplin, 43 in Independence. Let's roll only 39, however, in Stockton as the wind has come in close to 45 miles per hour earlier this morning. We don't have any wind advisories, but we're still picking up gusts from 30 to 35. Here is that severe thunderstorm risk map that we were talking about with the elevated area running from Georgia up through South Carolina and North Carolina, backing off a little bit. Heavy rain through the Ohio River Valley. This will stay pretty mundane. Good news for us is even if we were to take this out for the next 3 days, we stay on the quiet side. Temperatures, though, as we work overnight, we're going to get down close to freezing again. So luckily, we are on the dry side. But as the clouds begin to clear off overnight, we're actually going to end up with some weekend sunshine. All the precip moves on the other side of the Mississippi. Bundle up tomorrow. Whether it's the kids going to school, whether it's you getting ready for work, it's going to be a multi-layer morning. But really the afternoon's not going to be too bad. As Friday, we're going to be able to push up into the 50s. And now that we've got the sun shining on a Friday, it really sets us up for the beginning of a very, very nice weekend. Don't have to worry about any rain headed our way. And as far as the storms that were headed toward the Atlantic coast that we talked about, Midwest remains dry. And then for the beginning of next week, we turn our attention to low pressure systems that are going to work in off the Pacific Northwest and then head our way. So as far as our winter weather, technically just about to end with the equinox coming up over the weekend. But then, of course, spring thunderstorm activity. We'll begin to ramp that up on Monday, carry us through the middle of the week. So most of our flood warnings are set to expire either Saturday or Sunday. But the reason I wanted to point out the Neosho right there, because remember, that doesn't expire until Monday morning. So any other water absorption that we have, there's a good chance that those are extended all the way to the middle of next week. Tanya?
All right, thanks, Michael. We take this time to honor today's 4-state hero, Sergeant Ariazon Zandu in the U.S. Army. Soldier hails from Commerce, Oklahoma. To Sergeant Ariazon Zandu, we thank you, our 4-state hero. Looking for a lighter and brighter meal option to welcome spring back? Today, Howard shows us how to make a spring vegetable couscous in the Mr. Food Test Kitchen.
Do you realize that spring officially starts next week? That means it's time to put away those warm-you-up recipes and start thinking of dishes that are lighter and brighter. To get you going, we're sharing the perfect springtime side dish. To give this its springy feel, we begin by sauteing some diced zucchini, carrots, peppers, and onions in some butter in a skillet. Once they start getting tender, We add a package of frozen peas, or as some folks call them, spring peas, along with a couple of cups of water and a little salt and pepper. After it boils, we remove it from the heat and add in couscous. If you're not familiar with couscous, it's a type of tiny pasta that's light and fluffy, which makes it perfect for this time of year. Okay, now we'll cover this and let it sit for 5 minutes. Then we'll fluff it with a fork before serving it. There you have it, a new way to brighten up your table after a long winter. It's packed with veggies. It's super tasty, and the best part, it's done in one pan. To get the recipe for our spring vegetable couscous, all you have to do is go online. I'm Howard in the Mr. Food Test Kitchen, where today we found a simple springtime way for you to say, ooh, it's so good.
Well, you can find this recipe along with a lot more good food from the Mr. Food Test Kitchen online. Just go to our website at KOAMnewsnow.com. Here's a look at our 4 state market prices.
Chilly afternoon with overcast skies, but at least our thunderstorms and, that's right, mid-March snow are finally a thing of the past. Clearing off overnight sunshine on Friday up to the 50s. We'll begin Saturday with an afternoon high in the 60s.
All right, what do we have coming up tonight at 5, Dale?
Well, at 5, the pandemic led to more than 100,000 restaurants shutting their doors for good. But the owners who were forced to close are now facing another major challenge. Plus, today marks 1 year since the city of Joplin enacted the first ordinances in response to COVID-19. We're going to look at how far we've come since then. And while some students relax during spring break, students at College Heights use their time to help others. Hope you join us for those stories. A lot more, of course. It's all coming up on KOAM News at 5.
All right. Thank you, Dow. Thanks for joining us for KOAM News at noon. We'll see you right back here at 5 o'clock.